He is an internationally known speaker, performer, author, corporate trainer, and owner of one of the largest variety talent agencies in the Midwest, Circus Kaput. He is an experienced speaker, facilitator who focuses on the topic of connections and creating a complaint-free world. He has conducted workshops for corporations such as Edward Jones, Wells Fargo, and Google. As an entertainer, he's worked in a wide variety of venues, TV commercials, comedy clubs, circus, theater, the Smithsonian, and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Most recently, he was seen on the TEDx stage in St. Louis. Is that not everyone's dream to have a TEDx talk? Woo! He shared the stage with comedian and actor TJ Miller, and he's authored a book titled Mind-Blowing Presentations. In his free time, Josh enjoys writing, cuddling with his rescue dogs, and shopping for flamboyantly designed dress shirts. To know Josh is to love him. Please welcome Josh.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joshua Routh. Hello. It has been my great pleasure to spend the day with many of you. Some of you came to my sessions. A couple of you came 2 times to my sessions today. I know you were at both of my sessions today, so thank you so much for championing it out and sticking out for one more. I don't know what happened to these people here. I don't know. So that was a great introduction. Thank you so very much. Before that, who here has heard of me before? Okay, some of you haven't. Don't worry, I haven't heard of you before either. That's all right. It's okay. Today we're going to be talking about a complaint-free world. So my question to you is, who would like to live in a complaint-free world? Yeah. Yes. Or why don't we settle for, who would like to live in a complaint-free workplace? Yeah. More claps for that, it seems like. That's interesting. I myself have had to work on building a complaint-free workplace for ourselves. Our business, Circus Kaput, has about 50 performers. We do 850 events a year, and we have all kinds of people that we work with. But you can imagine that having 50 performers that we work with also means we have 50 personalities that we work with. We work with a wide variety of people. And when we do, we sometimes struggle with their relationships. Have you ever struggled with somebody's relationship with somebody that you work with? Yeah, we all have. I mean, sometimes it seems like more and more we have to deal with people's complaints all the time. So today, my goal is to help you learn why people complain and how to get them to be collaborators instead of complainers. Sound good? Say yes. All right, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Will Bowen. A few years ago, I was working a conference in Nashville, and Will was there, and he was speaking, and I was juggling. And after I got done juggling, Will came up to me, and he goes, "I can juggle." And I was like, well, okay. People come up to me all the time when they see me juggle, and they tell me that they can juggle, and they often do like this. They're like, "Look, I can juggle." Will actually could juggle. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And we ended up hanging out, and we ended up out of the hotel pool all night long doing card tricks and hanging out with each other. The strange thing was I didn't really know what Will spoke about because I wasn't there when he did his talk. I just met this guy after his talk, and I came on after him and I did my thing. It wasn't until about a year later, a year of Will texting me all these videos of David Copperfield flying across the Grand Canyon, asking me how he did that, all those kinds of things, you know. If you're a magician, you get those things all the time. You know, they all want to know, how does David Blaine do this? How does that happen? And I was talking to Will, and I was telling him about a couple performers that were working for me. And these performers were complaining all the time, and they were giving me a lot of grief, and I was complaining about them. And you know, it didn't feel very good because I have a business that we always say was built on cornbread and chili. The reason I say we were built on cornbread and chili is we started out with just a few performers, just booking a few gigs. Our first real gig as Circus Kaput was for the 2005 World Series Gala. They hired us to bring a couple of our entertainers out there to greet the players as they came in for the gala. And we were doing, you know, a little physical comedy. So we dressed as security guards, and we had rubber lobsters, and we were squeaking these guys as they came in as if that was like some security thing. You know, so we started out with like a small group of wacky performers, and we built to this monolith of great entertainment. And so for me, having this group of people come over to my house all the time, and I would make them chili, I'd make them cornbread, we'd get together, we'd learn skills. We had a lot of heart. You know, that was the core of our business, is heart, because I consider us merchants of joy. Our product is joy. And to have that being taken away from us by complainers, people who were complaining not only about the jobs, but complaining about our clients, complaining about the patrons, it started to bring everything down. And so I told Will about this. And that's when Will told me that he was the world's authority on complaining. I had no idea that my friend Will was the world's authority on complaining. This guy has been on Oprah. This guy was in People magazine. This guy has written a 5 million copy bestseller. He's an incredible guy. And so he told me this story. He said there was this hairdresser in Dallas, and the hairdresser had a pretty successful business, but he wasn't doing great, so we read a lot of like business books. We've all read business books, and we all have, who has a shelf full of business books? Just all kinds of like ideas, and you collect them after a while. You may not ever read them, but it's like it looks good on the shelf to have a whole collection of Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, and Brene Brown, right? I mean, it does. So Will wrote this book, and he said to me, this guy was a book collector, and he got my book, and he actually read it. And he learned about living a complaint-free world, or living a complaint-free life and having a complaint-free world. And so in it, he talks all about the ways that people complain and how we can deal with them. And it comes with this purple bracelet. All of you out there, you have the purple bracelet. You can see it out there. I commend you. I hope you put it on. I know some people have put it on their coffee cup. That works too. This guy, he did what Will created was the complaint-free challenge. 21 days of no complaining. That was Will's goal, is to get people to go 21 days without complaining. And he came up with this in 2006 at the most prosperous time in America. He was talking to people about not complaining in the most prosperous time in America. Because here's the thing, who wants to be more prosperous? Raise your hand if you want to be more prosperous. Who here complains about some of the things that you have? So why would you want more of it? Right? That's the real question. Why would you want more of the things that you complain about? And he wrote this book, and it challenged this hairdresser salon owner to live a complaint-free life, to do the challenge. And what he did was he took that bracelet and he went to the hardware store and he had it match the color to this paint of that bracelet. He goes into his hairdressing salon, paints all the walls this purple, hands copies of Will's book to everybody, hands everybody's bracelets, and he says, here's what's going to happen. You're either going to do this, and I'll give you a bonus. If you do the 21-day challenge, if you go 21 days without complaining, I'm looking at you, I see you have your bracelet on. If you go 21 days without complaining, I'm going to not only give you a bonus, but we're gonna have a complaint-free business, and we'll all do better together. And that was the goal, right? You read the book, you do the bracelet, we're gonna grow this business together. Come on, everybody, let's do this together. I'll give you a bonus, we'll grow together. His two top hairdressers in the salon, the two top hairdressers, they said they didn't want anything to do with it. And he said, will you do it or you're fired? And this was a hard thing. I know for myself, when you invest in people, and you all know this as well, when you invest in people, when you put time in people, when you grow with these people, you don't want to send them walking out the door. You want to fight for it and angle for it, and let's mediate, and let's argue for it. But he put his foot down and he said, I'm just not going to have a business that has so much complaining. Because these hairdressers, not only were they just complaining to each other, they were complaining to the patrons about the people that were coming in. This lady came in earlier, oh my God, you wouldn't even believe it. And other people were hearing it. And it just set a bad tone for the business. He said it was the hardest thing he ever had to do to walk across and open the door and watch those two walk out the door. So that was the hardest choice he ever had to make. But now in Dallas, he owns 5 salons, I think it was, and he was opening another one, and he speaks, like I do, on the complaint-free world, which I thought was really fascinating. So Will told me this story, and so I did the complaint-free challenge myself, 21 days without complaining. I'll tell you the thing, I only made it 20 days. Because I was reading Will's book, and you get to the part on gossip, and I was like, oh no, right? Because I like to gossip, I like to talk stories, I like to tell what's going on, I just do, you know? I've done it since then, I have done it since then, but the first time I only made it 20 days, and it took me a while to really get there. Because here's the thing, we all complain 15 to 30 times every day. 15 to 30 times every day. We all do it. We all think all these negative thoughts and complain 15 to 30 times a day. And here's the challenge. You go 21 days without complaining. Well, how will you know when you're complaining or not? Here's how it works. You take the bracelet off this wrist and you put it on the other wrist. Every time you complain, you take it off this wrist and you put it on the other wrist. You start back over at day 1. Who's in? Wow, okay. Here's the reality. The opposite of complaining is gratitude. When I was talking earlier and I was telling you about how everybody was so prosperous, yet they were still complaining about things because we're not grateful for what we have. Gratitude is about what's present and what's working. Complaining is about what's wrong and what's missing. And like I said, we complain 15 to 30 times a day and we have no idea we're doing it. So we need to learn to complain less and live a life of gratitude. All right, so we talked about the challenge. We talked about the bracelets. Are you guys ready to get into a little bit more about why we complain? Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. We all believe this, that there is too much complaining in the world. If you believe that, say yes. And the world isn't like we want it to be. Or the world isn't the way we'd like it to be. Is that correct? Say yes if you believe the world isn't like we want it to be. Good, thank you. Those two are correlated. We spend so much time thinking about, focusing on, talking about all the things that are wrong in the world, we start to create more of it in our lives. Every time you focus on something, it expands. And if you're complaining about things all the time, it becomes an expansion further and further and further, more and more complaining. And I'm not here just to complain about complaining. I know you were wondering it. You were looking at me. This guy's up here just complaining about complaining. I don't want to be switching my bracelet back and forth. Complaining is defined as expressing grief, pain, or discontent. What's the key word in that? Express. That's right. So you have to vocalize it. It's not just something you think internally. It's not just internal thoughts. We all have internal thoughts that are negative thoughts. How many negative thoughts do you think we have every day? 10,000. We actually all think about 45,000, scientists have proven, 45,000 negative thoughts every day. Oy vey, I know, right? I know. And we have overachievers that say to me, they're like, okay, I'm going to switch my bracelet with every negative thought. Good luck with that, right? No way. You're going to be switching it all the time. There's no way you could do that. With 45,000 negative thoughts, that would just be impossible. Here's why we think 45,000 negative thoughts. Because we have a negativity bias. We have evolved because it's safer to say no than it is to say yes. It's safer to say no than it is to say yes. If we were out there saying yes to everything, we'd be eating the red berries and we'd be dead, right? It's safer to say no than it is to say yes. And it's made complaining the dominant form of communication for most of us. Now, when we're talking about complaining, and all of you know this is kind of, I don't even need to tell you this, but for most of us out here who deal with the public on a regular basis, we're going to hear complaints from them. It's going to happen. But complaining, it's not complaining to speak directly and only to someone who can solve the problem. If someone comes and complains to you at one of your events, they're not complaining just to complain, though some of them are. They're complaining because it's a request for accountability. They're asking for something to change. They're asking you to fix a problem that they have. Now, I'll tell you this, some of them may come over and they may sound whiny or angry or stomp their feet. They may come across that way, that's true. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're absolved from having to fix the problem. And I'll tell you something else. If you look at those people and you wonder who they are, well, they were the kids that were brought up that they realized that if they stomped their feet and gnashed their teeth and complained to their parents did something about it, right? Well, next time you're dealing with someone like that, think of them not so much as somebody awful that you have to deal with, but as a wounded child. And that's really helped me. Now, I'll tell you something interesting. The Houston airport. Who's ever been to the Houston airport? I've been to the Houston airport quite a few times. And there was a gate that was right next to the baggage carousel. And people would come and land, and they would wait for their baggage, and they would start complaining because their bags didn't come soon enough. They would wait and wait and wait, and their bags didn't come soon enough. And they were like, well, our gate is here. Here's the baggage carousel. Why aren't our bags coming over here very quickly? So they called the airport and they said, look, what's going on? Why can't you get our bags here? And they were getting so many calls, so many complaints. And it was actually only taking 8 minutes for their bags to get there. The airport took it as a request for accountability and they fixed it. You know how they fixed it? They moved the gate way down the hall and made the people walk all the way down, right? It may be solved sometimes, but it may not be solved in the way you think about it. Also, another thing, people often think that if we're doing well, people will stop complaining, but that is not true. If you are doing well, people will often complain more because they expect more. If you are good, they will expect more from you. So keep that in mind. It's not always a barometer of how well you're doing. If you want to know how well you're doing, check out your reviews after an event. Ask people for reviews. That's generally a better way to look at it. Eckhart Tolle said, complaining is not to be confused with informing someone of a mistake or deficiency so that it can be put right. And to refrain from complaining doesn't necessarily mean putting up with bad quality or behavior. There is no ego in telling the waiter your soup is cold and needs to be heated up if you stick to the facts, which are always, thank you. I will stay awake a little bit. We're not done yet. I know it's been a long day. All right. How dare you serve me cold soup? That's a complaint. Whenever somebody comes at it with the attitude of how dare you, it's all about them, it's all about me, it's all about me. Most complaints have a how dare you in the middle of it, so look for that. This is interesting. I was traveling to England. I recently took a trip to England. Anyone ever been to England? Yeah. Fun trip, it was good. The hotel rooms are tiny, that's right. The hotel rooms are tiny in England. Well, I knew I was planning a trip to go to England, and I knew that I wanted to do a trip of a lifetime. I was bringing my wife there, and we were going to go have a trip of a lifetime. We were so excited for this trip, and I planned every detail. And one of the things that I thought would be really cool would be to have a hotel that overlooked Big Ben, you know, the big clock, right? That we open up our window, and there's Big Ben right across the Thames. I mean, how cool would that? I was so excited for that, right? No, not you?
I'm sure you loved it.
Oh, you didn't like it. I did. I loved England. You prefer the palace. Well, I did. I found this really great hotel right across the Thames from Big Ben. And I was certain I'd get a room that I could open the window and see Big Ben right there. So I called the hotel and I said, look, I have to have the room that we open. When we get there, we're getting there in the morning. We're going to get there early, paying for an extra night to get there early. I want to open the curtains and there's Big Ben. The lady's like, I got you. This is going to be awesome. Perfect. The hotel, it was a round building. On one side was the Thames and Big Ben, and on the other side was a brick wall, right? That's what I was like, I don't want to be on the brick wall. So sir, you will not be, I'm not going to do a British accent because I'll start doing Harry Potter quotes. She said, sir, you will not end up on the side of the brick wall. Great. 7-hour flight. We get there. You know, we're exhausted. We get there in the morning. My wife is all, exhausted as well. She's like, if I could just get a bath, I'll feel great. Awesome. We'll get to this great hotel room. We're going to get there. We're going to get you a bath. It's going to be awesome. We get there. We go up to the room. She goes straight for the bathroom because she wants to take that bath. Right? I'm like, what about I'm taking a bath, right? Go straight for the bathroom. I'm like, fine. I'm going to go enjoy the view. I open the curtains, and what do I see? Brick wall. There it was, the brick wall. So she's got the bath running. She's in there. And I'm like, honey, I know you like an extra blanket on the bed. I'm going down to the front desk. So I run down to the front desk. I go to the lady at the desk, and I'm like, what? I asked for this. I noted this. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was like, is there any way you can fix this? She goes, absolutely. We will get you a room on the other side. It's on the same floor. It's bigger. It will be great. So I go back up to the room. While my wife is taking a bath, I get all of our stuff. I take it all the way over to the room. I open it up. I open the curtains. There's Big Ben. It's nice. It's so good. I'm ready to go. So I go back. She comes out of the bath, and none of her stuff is there. So I'm like, honey, come with me. There was a robe. It was a nice hotel. I put a robe on her. And she's like, what are we doing? Where's all of our stuff? Come with me. We walk down the way. There it is. There's our room. Bigger than we could have wanted. Absolutely amazing. Perfect view, so excited. And it kicked off our trip. And we were so excited. We had a great trip. Now, before the complaint-free world, what I would have done is I would have immediately just sat in it. I would have sat in it, and I would have stayed in that room at those people. I would be sad and angry at them, right? And I would get on Facebook, and I'd be like, can you believe this? Oh my gosh, England, the hotel rooms are so small, right? That's what I would, and I have a brick wall, picture of a brick wall, right? That's what I would have done. But that's where we're trying to get out of today. That's what we're going to be talking about more and more and more. And also, one of my favorite phrases, if you're ever looking for something great to say to a service provider, is if you say something like, make me a hero to my wife. Can you help me make me a hero to my wife? Can you help make me, and if you don't even have a wife, say, make me a hero to my wife. It works really, really good. Because that's the thing. We stay in jobs, we stay in relationships, we stay in all sorts of things and just sit there and complain about it instead of doing something about it. So when you have a problem, speak only and directly to someone who can solve it for you. What's wrong with complaining? Complaining costs money. When you have a team of people that you work with and you've got one person who's a complainer, what slowly starts to happen is all the good people start to leave because they don't want to be in an environment where there's all that complaining going on. So complaining costs you money. It's a pandemic that spreads from person to person until you don't have any of the good people left. You lose all the best people. Complaining is a competitive sport. We all know this one. I was at a conference just like this one not too long ago, and I was at the Danish tray stand, you know, where they always have the breakfast Danishes and the coffee. And I was sitting there, I was putting a Danish on my plate, and this guy comes up and he has a bandage on. I'm not laughing because he had a bandage, but I'm laughing because of the story. Had a bandage on his head. I know, why are you laughing at the man with the bandage? What is wrong with you? He had a bandage on his head. And I was like, oh, dude, you know, are you okay? And somebody else comes and goes, Bob, what happened, right? And Bob goes, oh, I closed the car door on my head. I was so foolish. I don't know why I would do that. I closed it. And the guy goes, oh, man, that's nothing. Last week, I closed the car door on my head. I was in the hospital for 3 days. And another guy comes up and goes, that's nothing. My uncle, he closed the car door on his head and he died. What would have happened if it was reversed? And Bob, this guy comes up and goes, oh man, my uncle, he died. He closed the car door on his head. And Bob goes, I closed the car door on my head and I got this bruise. It doesn't work like that. It's a competitive sport. We build on top of it as we go. And it's not healthy. It's not a healthy attitude. People compete at complaining. Complaining keeps the focus on the problem. It doesn't keep the focus on the solution. It keeps the focus on the problem. When we're complaining about it, all we're doing is complaining and talking about the problem over and over again. Great story to illustrate this. There were two construction workers having lunch. One guy was sitting there, he opens up his lunchbox, he pulls out a sandwich, starts eating. The other guy comes and sits down next to him. He sits down, he opens his lunchbox, and there he has a meatloaf sandwich. He's like, I hate meatloaf. The other guy goes, I'm sorry, you want some of my ham? No, I hate meatloaf sandwiches. And he eats it, just grumbling, he eats the meatloaf sandwich. Next day, the two guys are sitting next to each other again. Guy opens his lunchbox. There it is again. He opens it up. Meatloaf. I hate meatloaf. Starts eating the meatloaf sandwich. The other guy just looks at him and shakes his head. Third day, the guy opens his lunchbox, pulls out the sandwich. Meatloaf! Tears it apart, starts stomping on it. Angry, meatloaf! The other guy goes, seriously, dude, just ask your wife to make you something different. He goes, I make my own lunch! If you hear nothing else today, know that you make your own lunch. By the words you say and the actions that you take, you make your own lunch. I personally write a gratitude list every day. It's really something simple that I can do. I write 5 things I'm grateful for every day. I sit down at night, I write 5 things. Sometimes it's just my shoes. Sometimes it's that I have a pillow. It doesn't matter. It's that practice of getting grateful every day because it is so much easier to get in that negativity land. If you can do it, give it a try. Just write 5 things for yourself every day that you're grateful for, and you'll see a bit of a mindset change. Complaining damages your health. This I thought was really fascinating. This is something I didn't know a whole lot about until I started doing some research on complaining. Complaining raises our cortisol levels, and that's the stress hormone. You know that feeling that you get when you're under stress and it's kind of like a cold thing like this? That's cortisol. And when we're feeling stress, it's like putting your car in neutral and pressing on the gas. Your energy rises up, but you're not going anywhere, right? That's what stress does to us. And complaining creates more and more stress for us. It also creates obesity, diabetes, and blood pressure rises. All these things are negative impacts of complaining on our health. Recently, some scientists at, I think it was Cornell, it was at Cornell, they did this MRI study. They put a man inside of an MRI, and they asked another man to come over and complain at the person. They said, I don't care what you complain about. Complain about your kids, complain about school, complain about job, complain about anything you want to complain about the weather for the next 30 minutes. And so the guy, stands there and starts complaining at the guy who's laying in the MRI machine. I can only imagine what that must have been like. What the scientists noticed, they watched the man's brain who was in the MRI machine, and after about the first 15 minutes, there was no real change. But at about 30 minutes, they started to see the man's hippocampus began to shrink. Now, the hippocampus is responsible for intelligent thought, creativity, problem solving. This man's hippocampus was starting to shrink due to complaining. So then they did it again, only they had the guy in the MRI machine complain. Same exact thing. So it's proof that complaining damages our intellectual ability. It destroys relationships. Who here knows somebody who complains incessantly? Raise your hand. Does that rob you of joy? Let me ask you this question. Your friend, your spouse, your significant other, your partner, whatever, what is the first thing out of your mouth you say when they come home? How was your... And then what do? They complain. Now, think about that. The first thing they do when they come home is start doing something that robs you of joy. How is that healthy for your relationship? How does it help you grow closer together or feel better about each other? We think of it as a way to unwind, but what if we came home and said things that we were grateful for? How would that change our mindset and change our relationships? Well, thank you. We would be joyful. Absolutely. All right, so now we know what complaining is. We know why we complain. No, we're going to learn why we complain, sorry. But here's something that's very, very simple, a very poignant thing that I want you to remember. The greatest gift you can give someone is the gift of your own happiness, because then you're not a burden to them and other people. When we burden people with our complaints, we're robbing them of happiness. My performers, we have this thing that we do every time a gig is over. It's called, we call it form site. We use a form site form that they fill out every time that they have to give it to us so that we see how the gig went. Was there any issues? Do we need to tell other performers about something upcoming? And we recently hired someone to come work with us that their job was to distill those forms and on Monday give us the digest of what it was. And so when she first started, she kept seeing this phrase, PITA, coming up on the forms. She said specifically out of a couple of these performers, they would say, well, the client was a PITA. And she's like, what is that? Do I need to pass that on to the other performers, this PITA thing? And I was like, PITA, pain in the, yeah. And I was like, no, do not pass that on, because here's the thing. If you're going into an event or you're going into something prepared for a PITA, what are you going to get? You're going to get the PITA because that's what you expect from that person. When we go into something feeling like we're going into war, well, we're going to put on our helmet. So we had a talk with them about PITA and starting to look at our clients and everyone is allowed to have a bad day. Performers are allowed to have a bad day. Planners are allowed to have a bad day. We're all allowed to have a bad day. That doesn't make us a PITA. All right, so I'm not complaining about complaining. That's hopefully you understand at this point. But I'm going to explain the 5 reasons people complain and what you can do about it, how you can turn them from complainers into collaborators. We're going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to require something of you. The great President Abraham Lincoln, he went to a school called a blab school. Anybody ever heard of a blab school before? Probably not. I hadn't heard of it until I read about Abraham Lincoln and I saw this idea. Abraham Lincoln went to a blab school. The teacher would say something and then the students would repeat it. Or when they read something, they would read it out loud. What this does is it reinforces what we're learning. Other people hear it too, and we all grow together. And even when Abraham Lincoln was president, he would read things out loud, and that's how he would brief everyone else in the room, and we all learn together. So we're going to do that here today. We're going to do a little bit of blab school here today. So why we complain. We broke this out into the word gripe. I love that. We did that on purpose because it's kind of funny. Let's do it. I think that's really hilarious. Gripe. Some places in the world use whinge. Some people use complain. Other people, shorthand is gripe. It's a good acronym, gripe. Now, when we talk about gripe, we broke it out into an acronym, GRIPE. Now, just so you know, this is kind of a funny fact. Gripe in Spanish is flu. We're talking about complaining being a virus. I thought that was kind of fascinating. The number one reason people complain is to get attention. People complain to get attention. And the thing is, we all need attention. We're all desperate for attention. So we're all going to say this all together right now. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and we're all going to say, get attention. What is the number one reason that people complain? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. I love that energy. You're helping me carry across the finish line. Thank you. I love it. We complain to get attention because I want to talk to you, but I don't know how. We don't know how to talk to other people, especially strangers. Our default is to complain. Our default mode is, I'm going to complain. Think about it with customer service. When we go into a restaurant or we go into a hotel or we go to a store, we know we're going to get good service if someone gives us attention. Am I right? As soon as we walk in and they give us attention, we know we're going to get good service. But that feeling that when we walk into an elevator and we're by ourselves and we know it's going to be a short trip and then someone else comes in the elevator and all of a sudden we're looking at the numbers. 7, 8, 9. We start to get really, really nervous. And that's when we say stuff like, oh, I don't know about fill-in sports team. Houston Oilers, how are the Houston Oilers doing this year? Oh my God, I can't believe how bad they're doing. Are they even going to win a game, right? Or did you catch the weather lately? It's raining out there. Like, yeah, I know. It's raining cats and dogs. I saw the animals lining up 2 by 2. Thank you for laughing. It's not a great joke. But we do that. That's what we do. We become hokey and we get very uncomfortable because we crave attention, but without complaining, we don't know how to connect to other people. Attention is a human need, not a human want. Attention is not a human want, it's a human need. We need attention. If you've ever noticed you're talking to somebody and they're holding their phone in their hand, you feel less connected to. If they set the phone down or put their phone in their pocket, you feel more connected. There was a show called Magic for Humans. Anybody ever seen Magic for Humans on Netflix? There's a show, Magic for Humans, on Netflix. This illustrates the point perfectly. This magician, Justin Willman, he does all these weird stunts with magic. And he did this thing where he got into a park and he brought 40 actors. And he said, okay, you over here, you're going to be a couple on a blanket. You over here, you're going to be playing chess. You over here, you're going to be playing Frisbee. And he set up this whole fake park scene. And then he waited until just the right person came along. And at that moment, he said, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to put on a magic show. Everybody, we're going to put on a magic show. Come on over, come on over, come on over. And this guy sees it, goes, walks over and sits down with everybody in this little amphitheater and watches the magic show. And he says, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make this man disappear. And the guy was like, what? He walks out, grabs the guy out of the audience, puts him in a chair. He says, we're going to make you disappear. Here we go. Puts a blanket over the guy. He says, 1, 2, 3, you're gone. All of the actors, as they were taught to do, went, oh my God, he's gone. And this guy took him a second, but he's like, wait a second, what? This isn't real. And they're like walking up to his chair, looking under his legs, looking all around him. All of the actors were playing the part that this man actually was invisible. So it didn't take the guy too long to realize that he had one of the world's great superpowers. He gets up, he starts walking around. He goes to the people who are having wine and cheese on a blanket and starts drinking their wine and eating their cheese. Goes to the chess thing, starts moving it around. People are like, oh, it's a ghost. What's going on? And this guy was having the time of his life. You should watch this. It's incredible. He had the time of his life for about 5 minutes until he wasn't. Because he was going around going, they can't see me, they can't see me. Until it was, oh my God, they can't see me. And then you see it on his face. You see him have an existential crisis. He starts to realize that no one can see him. Human beings have a need for attention. We need to be seen. Justin Willman saw this and went over, put a blanket over and brought him back, and the guy was whole again. But there was a follow-up. You can actually see this also. There's a follow-up with this guy where he was interviewed later where somebody said, did you actually think you were invisible? And he goes, yeah, I actually believed I was invisible. We go into this space where we have to realize that people complain because it's a human need. Attention is a human need. So what do we do? We're going to say it together. We're going to read it out loud. When someone comes to you and complains, this is what you say to them. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What is going well with anything? You, your job, whatever. You force them to have gratitude. What is going well with your job? What is going well with your team at work? What is going well with your kids? What is going well with your marriage? What is going well with you? When you ask somebody what is going well with it, it reframes their mind. Now, one of two things will happen. One, they will either reframe and start thinking positively and saying positive things to you, or two, they will leave you alone. Either way, you win. Okay? Either way, you win. It's a simple thing, and people think you're doing verbal jiu-jitsu, but you're not. It's a simple phrase that can change the mind of people. Because get them right before they're about to tell you the world's worst news, because they always are. All right. So, the G in gripe stands for? Where were you that time? Wow. Linda, I was counting on you. I know. You carried the whole group last time. Last time they had so much more energy because of you, Linda. This time they're going to do it again and they're going to have more energy. I believe in you, Linda, to carry all these people, and they're all going to do it all out there, especially Renee. Renee's in on it too. All right, here we go. You're sending that to somebody who needed it. Right. Well, now you have the bracelet. You're going to, grab a bracelet for them too. I got an extra one. You can feel free to take one for them. Go ahead. It's all right. That was the thing that Will sent me the book, Complaint-Free World, his book that he wrote, and he sent me a bag of bracelets that came with it. And I thought I just needed one bracelet. He goes, you're going to need them all. He did, because people are going to want to do this. Because here's the thing. Will started out with a group of people with just 50 bracelets. After a month, he had given out 9,000 bracelets. To date, we've given out 15 million bracelets worldwide in 106 countries. Pretty cool. I know, right? We're creating a complaint-free world. Okay, so when I ask you, I expect to hear from you, okay? What does the G in gripe stand for? That's right. You guys are awesome. People complain to remove responsibility. If you ask someone, this is what I want, this is when I want it, well, typically they're not going to say no. But they're going to come up with a million excuses why they're not going to do it. They're going to complain about the aspects surrounding the request. They'll probably say all sorts of different things to get out of the request that you have for them. They will likely say, I would love to do that. You've heard that before. Yeah. I'd love to. It gets better. Bye. Call me. They're going to say, I would love to do that, but. They're going to name something that's in the way, something that's keeping them from being able to do it. And we're all nice people. We want to resolve it for them. But every time you try to resolve something for them, what do? They offer another but, another complaint, another block, another way that they don't have to do it. They're trying to deflect from that, okay? They're going to give you want them on the hook. They're going to give you tons of reasons to get off the hook. This is how they rationalize. I was looking for that phrase. They rationalize. They tell rational lies. I'll wait. They tell rational lies to keep from actually having to do anything, okay? And you don't want to be mean when you say this, but this is a phrase that really puts the nail in it. We're going to say it together, everybody. Ready? 1, 2, 3. If it were possible, how might you do it? It's a golden phrase. Doesn't work all the time, only 100% of the time. Okay? All right? Here's the thing. If you stress the word were, if it were possible, how might you do it? Instead of saying all these things like, do this, do that, if it were possible, how might you do it? If it were possible, how might you do it? And notice there's another word in there. How might you do it? Meaning not me. I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it. All right. And if they keep bugging you, just keep asking them, keep bringing it back to this phrase, if it were possible, how might you do it? All right, we're back to this. We're almost there, folks. Only 3 more letters. I know you're ready for that happy hour. All right. The G in gripe stands for? The R in gripe stands for? Great, good, love it. And the I stands for inspire envy. People complain to inspire envy. Now, why does it inspire envy? Because GRB for brag doesn't really work. Okay? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about bragging. And there's no place in the world that braggarts are thought to be cool people. Nowhere. Bragging does not move us forward in life. Nobody likes a braggart. It just doesn't exist. So when they complain to inspire envy, an example of that would be, a friend of mine and I were having coffee, and he's done really well with himself. He's made a lot of money. He's doing really, really good. And we both came from working class backgrounds, so to see him doing so well, I mean, he's doing really, really well. And he bought this $5 million house that he told me all about. But this was the funny thing. We're sitting down having coffee, and he goes, you know, Josh, you'd think if you bought a $5,000 dog, and he pulls out a dog leash out of his pocket and sets it on the table and goes, you'd think they'd give you like a leather and gold leash. That man was carrying a dog leash in his pocket to complain the fact that he bought a $5,000 dog and didn't get a fancy leash that came with it. The complaint, it's so innocuous, but that's what we do. We complain to brag. Now, I don't know if you know much about bragging, but here's a fun one. You know how you know if someone has a Peloton, has dietary restrictions, or swallows swords? Wait 5 minutes, they'll tell you. Where's my Pelotoners? No Pelotoners in here? Oh, you got one? You have one, but it's a coat rack. Oh, so sad. We got on it during COVID. We love it. It's so good. Love my Peloton. We complain to make ourselves appear to be superior to other people. A very simple example for this is, you're at an office meeting and Tom comes in and Tom says, we get started, but Sarah, she's always late. We can't get started because Sarah's always late. And everyone goes, ha, 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 that's Sarah. She's always late. What Tom's really saying is, I'm always on time. He's complaining to express the fact that he's always on time. So here's how you deal with that. On the count of 3, everybody say it with me. 1, 2, 3.
Compliment the opposite.
That's right, compliment the opposite. So when Tom starts complaining that Sarah's always late, you just say to Tom, you know what, Tom? You know what I love about you? You're always on time. Thanks, Tom. That's what Tom does. Children. Who here has children? Okay, one of them comes up to you complaining. Their sibling, the room is all messy. Their room is a mess. Their room is a mess. You know what I love about you? You always put your things away. You always keep your room clean, right? Compliment the opposite. All right, here we go. The G in gripe stands for? I'm going to do it again because I really want to hear that man right there say it. That man has been looking at his paper the whole time. You're saying it, sir. The G in gripe stands for? The R in gripe stands for? You guys are good. The I in gripe stands for? I love that you looked at your notes because that means that you took notes. I'll take it. That's fine. And the P in gripe stands for power. Right? We complain to get power. People complain to gain followers. If you've ever noticed, no political party has ever gotten in power by saying the other side is doing a great job, right? So, anybody seen The Social Dilemma documentary? Yeah, in The Social Dilemma documentary, it's a really great documentary, and you should definitely watch it if you haven't seen it. They brought in all these leaders from all of the top social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, all these great leaders that came in. And they asked them, how do you get people to stay on your platform longer? And they said, well, if they're into surfboards, we show them surfboards. And if they're into horses, we show them horses. And then after a while, we show them something that makes them a little uncomfortable or makes them a little bit angry. And then they get engaged, and then they stick around. And then they're on there for hours and hours and hours. And I don't know about you, but I've been a victim of it many, many times. Not just that I'm commenting on it, because I really don't. I'm just in the back eating popcorn, watching it all go down. right? You know it, you do it too. But that's how they get power over us. And the news knows this too. The media knows this too. Every time the news media comes on and says something like, your toaster is probably killing you right now. Come back in 5 minutes and we'll tell you all about it. And you come back and of course your toaster's not killing you. Everything's fine. But that's how they get you. We call that enrage and engage. That's what they do. They enrage us so that they can keep us engaged. Because imagine if I came up here and I was doing my pitch and I was like, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joshua Routh, and I'm going to be running for U.S. Congress. And you want to send me to Washington because I think they're all doing a bang-up job, and I want to keep it all the same. Vote Joshua Routh for status quo. Am I getting elected? No, because they know that they can latch on to our negative thoughts, get into us, get us enraged and engaged, and keep us going. People do this to us as well, all the time. You may have one person pitting you against somebody else, getting you into a fight, pulling you into this drama or that drama. So here is what you say to them. We're going to say it all at the same time. 1, 2, 3. It sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. That's right. Sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. The two of you, not me. The two of you have a lot to talk about. I had two performers. One of them was using a kind of entertainment that we don't really like to use very much, where it's deprecating humor or making fun of another performer, or making fun of the audience sometimes. We don't really do that. And these two performers were performing together, and that performer was making fun of another performer in front of the audience, tearing him down to make himself look good. And the performer came to me to complain about it. And he complained and he complained and he complained. And I said something to the other performer, and it didn't really stick because it didn't make that person feel better, because I was being the intermediary of the whole thing. So I said, I'll tell you what, sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. I'm going to schedule a meeting. I'm going to schedule a meeting for the two of you to sit down and talk this through. You know I don't approve of that kind of performing, because that doesn't build up our audience. It doesn't create connection. But it sounds like the two of you have something to talk about, and I want you two to hash it out. So that phrase works wonders. When you've got two people creating drama in your life or in your business or in your home, it sounds like the two of you have a lot to talk about. I'll schedule a meeting and put them in that situation. All right, here we go. The G in gripe stands for? The R in gripe stands for? The I in gripe stands for? Envy, that's right. The P in gripe stands for? Power. Right. And the final one is excuse poor performance. People complain to excuse poor performance. And excuse poor performance is the past tense of remove responsibility. It's the past tense of remove responsibility. Because they've already gone through all the reasons of complaining why they don't want to do something. Well, now they've done it, and they didn't do it well, and now they're complaining to you about how it didn't work out. The weather was bad. This was this was that. That's what they start going into. They start bringing up all these reasons why it didn't work. Because remember, it was I would love to, but now it's don't blame me, blame the circumstances. Don't blame me for what went wrong. Blame the circumstances. I didn't have anything to do with it. Personally, I'm a runner. Any runners in the house? A couple, you run? Running's great when you do it. And then if you stop doing it, running's not so great, right? You get into this, I don't want to go do it, right? But when you're doing it, you're loving it. And then you get into a pattern and it's great. Well, I was running half marathons and doing all kinds of runs, and everything was great. And then I got really busy and I wasn't able to run very much. Last year, I did the Mo Cowbell half marathon. It was the third time I'd done it. And it was really, really hot. But that isn't why I bonked. It isn't why I bonked. I didn't fall on the ground and lay there cramping up, sweating, and having people coming up to me going, "Are you okay?" Because the weather was hot. It was because I didn't train enough. It was my responsibility. I didn't train enough in warm weather and in heat. I did my treadmill, or I just didn't run. So I have to own that I didn't do well. That was my responsibility. But I could have very easily said, it was just hot. The pavement was hot. The circumstances were bad. There wasn't good enough water stations every way. They didn't have, bars for me to eat while I was running. It's all their fault. We remove responsibility when we get into that phase, right? So, this is what you say. We're going to say it together. 1, 2, 3. Right, next time. Because we don't want to focus on the past. Focusing on the past, on what happened, that's not going to fix anything. We can't fix the past. We can only fix what we're going to do next time. So how will you do better next time? Well, I have a 10K this coming weekend, and I've been training and I've been practicing, and I'm doing better and I'm ready to go. I improve to do better next time. But we can't focus on the past because that just becomes across as a blame game. That doesn't solve anything. So when you have someone who is excusing poor performance, what we say to them is, what are you going to do different next time? How's it going to be different? What are we going to do different next time? All right. So, ready? We're going to do them all together. Only this time, you're going to do it from memory, and you're going to do it loud. All right? I want to hear you. This is the last one. We're almost done, and I want to hear you say it. The G in gripe stands for? The R in gripe stands for? The I in gripe stands for? The P in gripe stands for? Power. Yeah, and the E in gripe stands for? Give yourselves a big round of applause. You got it. That is good. You guys are brilliant. Okay, so now you have your bracelets. You know why people complain. You know how to turn them into collaborators. Now you're on the 21-day challenge, all right? So remember, as you're going through it, if you find yourself complaining, switch the bracelet to the other wrist. But that doesn't mean you get to be a bracelet cop. We don't get to be a bracelet cop. If somebody else complains, you don't go, you got to switch the bracelet. Because that would be complaining, and you got to switch your bracelet. You feel like what? It's stating a fact. Wow. Really? You want to get to those 21 days fast, don't you? It is stating a fact, but it's still complaining. Okay. And it's a process. Guys, just know that the average person, they're going to switch the bracelet 1 to 4 times every day. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen immediately. It's going to take time. It could take 4 to 6 months, okay? But just know that it's worth doing. It has changed my life. It has changed my business. Things have improved immensely, and that's why I'm here talking to you about. I'm the guy who buys the Apple Ultra Watch, even though I'm not running ultra marathons, and wants to tell everybody why you should have an Apple Ultra Watch. Because I believe in things, and when I get excited about something, I want to share it, and I'm very excited about this. This has been an immense pleasure in my life and changed my life in so many ways. So I hope you all do the challenge. Now, people often ask, because you're going to want to know, how do I get more bracelets? Because you're going to want them. Go to acomplaintfreeworld.org. It's on your bracelet. You can see it right there, acomplaintfreeworld.org. Also, people want to connect with me. If you want to hire me to speak or do other things, you can go to joshuarouth.com, and you can see all about me and all the things that I do. All right? This here is the QR code to give me some feedback. If everybody would scan that real quick with your phone. I value feedback. This is not just something that I do just for fun. I really want to get better and better and better. I own my mistakes. I want to get better. This is a huge piece of that. So if you think you want to give me some feedback, I would love to have it. I have a responsibility to do better all the time. Okay, it's a request for accountability from you to me. All right, so please, and if you put that code in, you'll get right there. All right. Lastly, my friend Will, I told you all about him. Impressive guy. The book is great. If you've never read A Complete Free World, please read it. It's an incredible book. The new version just came out. It's really good. His audiobook is really good. And I always love to do a pitch for Will because he's an incredible person and he's helped me so much. Will and I talked, and the one question that I asked Will recently was, this is a really silly thing, but I said, what's Oprah like? Because I had to know. Because he was on Oprah, right? He met Oprah. And he said, Josh, Oprah is exactly like you would think she is. She is the same person live and in person as she is on TV. That is how she's funny, she's kind, she's got a warm heart. He said she's incredible. He said after they were done doing the interview and the lights were all down and they were sitting together, she put her hand on his arm and said, you know, Will, I don't have anything to complain about. And Will was like, rolled his eyes and said, of course not, you're Oprah. You're like one of the most rich, powerful women in the whole wide world. Of course you have nothing to complain about. He didn't say that, but he thought it. And Oprah, with her magic eyes, knew exactly what he was thinking. She looked right through him and said, no, Will, you misunderstand. It's not that I have all that I have, so I don't complain. It's that I don't complain, and that's why I have all that I have. You see, Oprah gets it. Oprah makes her own lunch, and she does it every day with intention, and you have that same power. So please, please go out there and make a magnificent buffet and invite the world. Thank you very much. My name is Josh Routh. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.